Gary, love has to be one of the greatest emotions, but also one of the hardest to define. How would you define love?
Well, I think there are many definitions of love. I think there's many kinds of love. You know, we talk about falling in love. That's a very emotional experience. And it's really an emotional obsession. You get obsessed with the other person. They're the most wonderful person you've ever seen in your life. That's one kind of love. But love is also an attitude. It's a way of looking at life and looking at yourself. It's the attitude that says, I want to enrich the lives of the people that I encounter today. And I want to enrich the life of my spouse or my friend. So it's an attitude. So there's an emotional aspect and there's an attitudinal aspect and there's a behavioral aspect. If you have an attitude of love, it will affect your behavior. So we have to talk about what kind of love we're talking about.
Why do you say love is a choice?
I think the attitude of love is a choice. Now, falling in love is not a choice. It just happens. You see this person, there's something about the way they look and the way they talk and the way they emote that will give you an emotional, I call it an emotional tingle. You just are attracted to them. Yeah, and that's an emotion. But the kind of love I'm talking about, love is an attitude with appropriate behavior, is a choice. Maybe I don't have strong emotional feelings for my spouse, for example. Maybe we've had too many arguments and we've said hateful things to each other and I've lost all those emotional feelings. But if I have an attitude of love, I choose my attitudes. I don't choose my emotions, but I choose my attitudes. And if I choose to take the attitude toward my spouse, for example, that I want to enrich their life, I want to do something to make their life easier, I want to help them accomplish their goals in life, that's a choice. That's an attitude. And I can then follow through with that thinking and actually do things that will enrich their lives. So in that sense, love is a choice.
And do you find that if you choose the right attitude, that can then flow on to the right feelings?
I think when you choose the attitude of love and then you learn how to express love to that person in a way that's meaningful to them, you stimulate emotions in them. And those emotions draw them to you. And if they communicate love in a way that's meaningful to you, I call them love languages. If they communicate love in your love language, you feel love. It stimulates love. So the behavior stimulates the emotion that we typically call, I feel loved, I feel cared for, I feel valued.
It feels like it can create a really beautiful cycle between you.
Well, I think it does. You know, I didn't know anything about love languages when I got married. And I did what comes natural for all of us. I expressed love to my wife in a way that I would want to receive love. I gave her words of affirmation. I told her how beautiful she was. I told her how much I appreciated what she did. I probably told her a dozen times a day, I love you, honey. I am so glad I married you. I love you. And I said that, you know, in the early days of our marriage. And one night she said to me, you keep on saying, I love you, I love you. If you love me, why don't you help me? And I was blown out of the saddle because in my mind, I loved her. And she's saying, if you love me, you would do something to help me. It's not enough to be sincere. We have to learn the love language of the other person, what makes them feel loved, and then choose to speak that language.
I'm really keen to hear about the love languages. What does that mean?
What I discovered is that there's fundamentally, at least in my research, 5 basic love languages, 5 ways to express love. We've talked about mine, which is words of affirmation, just verbally affirming them for things that you genuinely appreciate about them. And one is acts of service, doing things for them, about which we've talked. And then there's gifts, giving gifts. The gift says they were thinking about me. Look what they got for me. And for some people, this is what makes them feel loved. Then there's quality time, giving them your undivided attention. It can be a conversation together, but the TV is off, the computers are down, we're giving each other our full attention, or taking a walk down the road together and talking. And then there's physical touch, affirming physical touches. And the basic idea is that out of those 5, each of us has a primary love language. One of the 5 will speak more deeply to us emotionally than the other 4. Now, we can appreciate all 5 of them. We're not going to turn away any one of those, but one of them is going to really speak deeply to us, much deeper than the others. And if you don't receive love in your primary language, then you don't feel loved, even though the other person is speaking some of the other languages.
So is this a signpost to us as far as if we're not connecting with our partner, the first step is to understand what love language we need?
Yeah, I think by nature, we speak our own language. That is, if we don't know anything about this concept, whatever makes us feel loved, that's what we do for them. But we're missing them emotionally. But once we learn what makes them feel loved, we have a choice.
Is it difficult to learn someone else's love language?
It all depends on whether or not you learned to speak these love languages when you were growing up. For example, if you never received words of affirmation growing up, it'll be hard for you to learn how to speak words of affirmation as an adult to the other person. But here's the good news. You can learn to speak another person's language, any of these 5 languages, as an adult, even if you did not receive them as a child. But it will take more effort for some people than it will for others. So what I'm saying is you can learn. It's like learning a new language, but we can learn. And when we understand how important it is, we're motivated to learn how to speak that language.
And I assume that knowing that your partner is trying already makes you feel more loved.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. When you realize that you are contributing to their life, it becomes easier for you to do it because you understand how important it is. And like learning any language, the more you speak it, the easier it becomes. It can be a learning curve, but we can learn. And there are few things that are more profitable than learning how to communicate love meaningfully to the significant people in your life.